Good morning. I'm glad everybody's here this morning. We're going to talk a little bit about biblical archaeology. But before we get started, I want to introduce you to a buddy of mine. This is William Duncan Vandiver. And actually, you can see from his apparent age, he's not really a buddy, but he's interesting because of something he said following a debate in Philadelphia. He said, "Frothy eloquence neither satisfies nor convinces me. I'm from Missouri. You have to show me." Now, you might be wondering, what's that got to do with biblical archaeology? Let me tell you. Biblical archaeology is the show me of apologetics. We have artifacts. We have physical artifacts we could touch, we could feel, we could measure, we could read. Cuneiform tablets, stones, papyri, all kinds of different things in the archaeology field. Today I want to focus on one thing and why that's important that we have this information available. If you were around in 1992 and you happened to pick up a copy of Atheist Times, you might have seen this headline, "King David never existed." Well, that's interesting because outside the Bible, and if you look at this little article here, it says outside the Bible, there's absolutely no evidence that he ever existed. It was only in the Bible that you could find a discussion about King David and his dynasty, his kingdom, the story of David. But then in 1993, something interesting happened. At Tel Dan, an archaeological excavation in the Middle East, a stone was found that's been known now as the House of David inscription. And here's a nice little picture of the stone. You can see that it's about 12 inches by 9 inches. It's rather small, but the significance is huge. Why is it huge? Because it's the first time outside the Bible that we had evidence, hard evidence, that King David existed. So exactly what is the House of David inscription? The House of David inscription was an ancient form of propaganda by King Hazael, who had conquered Israel and Judah, and he had placed this in the city of Dan as a kind of a public notice to everybody that, hey, I'm the new guy around here, I'm the new king, I conquered this area. So it was kind of an ancient form of propaganda. But let's take a pause for a minute and look at some of the physical attributes of this stone. What are some of the attributes of this find? Well, as I mentioned, it was a form of propaganda. Interesting enough that it was actually rather small. 12 by 9 is not that big, and the fact that it was found is pretty much a miracle in itself. Now, a few things about it. The language it was written in was Aramaic, which was the language of the day. This was from around 840 BC. They had estimated this stone had been created. Another interesting fact about this stone was the fragments were found near the city gate, and they weren't found together. Two fragments were found together. Another fragment was found, many yards away. What's significant about that is they believe that the actual original monument that contained the full inscription had been broken up and reused as building material, as was the custom in the day. This was not uncommon to reuse material, and hence this is how the tells got built, with layers upon layers. The significance is it is also the earliest mention of King David. This is not a house down your city street. This is referring to a kingdom. A king that was bragging about his conquest would not brag about a second-rate person. So the fact that this David was mentioned in the context of his conquest was significant, and it indicated that David's rule was a very significant one. He was a major figure in the Old Testament times. The translation of it will let you read the bulk of it, but we see here on line 8 where you find the reference of the house of David, and as we examine the rest of the translation, we see that the reference is also made to King Hazael's conquest of Israel and Judah, which further confirms the biblical account. Now, what's significant here is we have a wonderful marriage of what's written on this stone to the Old Testament account. And here we see in 2 Kings a reference of how King Hazael had eventually come to conquer the area. And then also here in 2 Chronicles, there's further confirmation attesting to the truth of what we find on this stone. So thank you very much for your time this morning. We'll continue with our discussions of biblical archaeology a little bit later today.